Wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Today, inshallah, we're going to pick up from verse number 168 of Surah Al-Baqarah and try to make our way to where the ayat about Ramadan are discussed, if we have the time. If not, then maybe another time we'll get to those ayat. But we begin by talking about some of the legislation that appears in the middle of Surah Al-Baqarah. Right? So the entire discussion related to the Bani Israel has taken place. That entire discussion related to the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam has also taken place. And now we're moving right along to the part of Surah Al-Baqarah that has a lot of guidance related to the formation of a new community that is in Medina. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing this community and giving them legislation and correcting certain misconceptions and of course doing many, many more things. But the idea is centered around raising up this new community that will be the witnesses unto mankind, as we discussed in the verse that is right in the middle of Surah Al-Baqarah. So that type of a personality is being created and community is being created. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس كلوا مما في الأرض حلالا طيبا ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. O humanity, eat from what is lawful and good on the earth and do not follow Satan's footsteps. He is truly your sworn enemy. Now, this is coming after the verses related to giving us a sense of appreciation about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the provider have come down. So, after that sense of appreciation is built up, then we're being told to eat from whatever is halal, but also from whatever is good. Both of those things. And at the surface, you may not appreciate the significance of what's being mentioned over here. At the surface, you may think that this is just a verse that is telling you to eat halal, and maybe by extension it's telling you not to eat the haram. You may think that way. But another way to think about this is that in the context of when it was being revealed, there were still some misconceptions in people's minds about what is allowed and what is prohibited. So for example, like you can imagine in the days of Jahiliyyah, there may have been certain laws that the people lived by, where they thought some things were allowed and some things were forbidden based on nothing, based on baseless mythology and baseless customs and baseless rituals. And so if a person like that entered into Islam once they met Rasulullah and heard the message of the Quran, then it could be that that person is still holding on to the old customs and the old traditions that have no basis. So it's as if that they're holding on to something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfectly okay with and that's perfectly acceptable to do, but they may feel uncomfortable with it. Like imagine, for example, somebody is a Christian monk and they reject marriage and they reject all the comforts and luxuries of this world, but somehow or the other they're convinced of Islam. So the next day they become a Muslim, but they still don't get married. Or they still don't do what normal people do as far as eating a regular food diet and going to work and actually earning a living and getting married. So they don't do any of these things, but on the inside, they want to be a Muslim. So to that kind of a person, you have to say, كُلُوا مِمَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا. Eat, go for it. Don't stop yourself from what is halal and what is tayyib. Because when a person restricts himself from what Allah has made halal, baselessly, for no reason, then the doors to the haram become more and more accessible for that person. Right? Like the example of the monk. If a monk, for example, tomorrow becomes a Muslim but doesn't get married, right? Then he's stopping himself from something that is allowed and in fact encouraged. And if he stops himself from that, it could be that he slips into the haram unnecessarily, right? So that's one of the wisdoms behind Allah telling us, كُلُوا مِمَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا. Like for example, telling a Hindu person after he accepts Islam, go ahead and eat meat. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't follow those old customs where you had a certain diet that was based on nothing, substantial. So, go ahead and enjoy the liberation that Islam provides for you. إنما يأمركم بالسوء والفحشاء وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون. He, meaning shaitan, only incites you to commit evil and indecency and to claim against Allah what you do not know. Hence, Allah is telling us, كُلُوا مِمَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. When it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they reply, no. We only follow what we found our forefathers practicing. Would they still do so even if their forefathers had absolutely no understanding or guidance? وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي يَنْعِقُ بِمَا لَا يَسْمَعُ إِلَّا دُعَاءً وَنِدَاءً صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. The example of the disbelievers not responding to the messenger's warning is like a flock not comprehending the calls and cries of the shepherd. They are willfully deaf, dumb, and blind, so they have no understanding. And over here, the verb that's used is yan'iqu. And yan'iqu doesn't just mean like a call to, like a warning. It's not just a normal warning, but yan'iqu means to scream and shout at the top of your lungs. So it's as if the messenger is screaming and shouting at us or a flock of people at the top of his lungs, and we are just completely unresponsive, right? So about these kinds of disbelievers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they're like animals who have no clue that the shepherd is trying to guide them in the right direction. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم واشكروا لله إن كنتم إياه تعبدون. O believers, eat from the good things we have provided for you and give thanks to Allah if you truly worship Him alone. Now this is coming again, except slightly differently than the first time. And what's interesting is that the concept of shukr is now mentioned alongside the sustenance and the allowance of good and halal and tayyib food, right? So the idea is that when you're grateful, when you're satisfied, then you should express your gratitude. Because when you're ungrateful, then you always just want and want and want. You endlessly want more, and that you can never be satiated if you're ungrateful. So the idea here is to show that gratitude and do so especially so that you can limit yourself and be satisfied at a reasonable point. إنما حرم عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أحل به لغير الله فمن اضطر غير باغ ولا عاد فلا إثم عليه إن الله غفور رحيم. He has only forbidden you to eat carrion, blood, swine, and what is slaughtered in the name of any other than Allah. But if someone is compelled by necessity, neither driven by desire nor exceeding immediate limit, they will not be sinful. Surely Allah is all-forgiving, most merciful. And this is what was originally prohibited in Abrahamic law. And later on, things became tainted by shirk and other kinds of, toxic corruptions. إن الذين يكتمون ما أنزل الله من الكتاب ويشترون به ثمنا قليلا أولئك ما يأكلون في بطونهم إلا النار ولا يكلمهم الله يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم. Indeed, those who hide Allah's revelation, trading them for a fleeting gain, consume nothing but fire in their bellies. Allah will neither speak to them on the day of judgment, nor will He purify them, and they will suffer a painful punishment. Now, notice over here that in the previous verses, Allah was talking to us about what we are allowed to eat and what we're not allowed to eat. Mainly what we're not allowed to eat, and that we should go ahead and eat whatever is halal and tayyib. And now a similar theme is mentioned in the sense that those who consume fire are the ones who hide the revelation. Because those who hide revelation, they have no idea the type of destruction and chaos it can cause for the common man when he goes about doing things that he shouldn't be doing. Or he doesn't do certain things which are allowed for him to do and that he should be doing, and that facilitate a strong society and community, right? So those kinds of people who hide the revelation, they will have one of the toughest experiences on the Day of Judgment. أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى والعذاب بالمغفرة فما أصبرهم على النار. They are the ones who trade guidance for misguidance and forgiveness for punishment. How persistent are they in pursuit of the fire? This is kind of like a kind of a sarcastic point that Allah is making over here. Like, how persistent are they? How much they desire of the fire. So it's very interesting that Allah makes that kind of a point over here. ذلك بأن الله نزل الكتاب بالحق وإن الذين اختلفوا في الكتاب لفي شقاق بعيد. This is because Allah has revealed the book in truth, and surely those who differ regarding it are totally engrossed in opposition. ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون. Now, before I get into the translation, we should recall that earlier in the surah, we also got a flavor of, we got an understanding of what true righteousness is all about. And that came at the time when the Qibla direction was being discussed. Because what we were being told at that point was that it's not just that you turn in one direction or the other and you consider that to be righteousness. There's more to righteousness. That's going to be discussed over here. But over there is also a discussion related to the Qibla facing in one direction or the other, right? Now, over here, again, this topic resurfaces. And Allah is going to point out to us what it is what it means to actually be righteous in the true sense of the word. Not just limiting righteousness to mere ritual, but beyond ritual, what does righteousness include? So the translation is, righteousness is not turning your faces toward the east or the west. Rather, the righteous are those who believe in Allah, the last day, the angels, the books, and the prophets, who give charity out of their cherished wealth to relatives, orphans, the poor, the needy travelers, the beggars, and for freeing captives, who establish prayer, give the zakah, keep their pledges when they make it, and who are patient in times of suffering, adversity, and in the heat of battle. It is they who are true in faith, and it is they who are mindful of Allah. So, if we look at all the different things described about righteousness, you can sort of think of them as being in three categories. The first is beliefs, things that you are supposed to believe in about the unseen world, right? So that would involve Allah and the last day and the angels and the books and the messengership of the people that Allah sends. All right, and then after that, there is a section dedicated to the rituals, right? So for example, establishing the prayers and also paying the zakah. But there's also a section dedicated to the social upliftment of society. So caring for the weak, caring for the orphans, caring for the poor, keeping your pledges, and also staying true to your belief system in the times of hardship. Because it's easy to be a believer when things are nice and easy. Your job is comfortable, you're making good money, everybody around you is Muslim. In those moments, it's very easy to claim and cling on to Islam, but your true claim to faith is tested during times of hardship, during times of, for example, rampant Islamophobia or crackdowns on Muslims, or some kind of other thing that really forces you to pick a side. Do I want to be Muslim, or do I want to let go of my faith because it's easier? So these are the three areas that you can kind of roughly box things into, but of course each and every individual component deserves its own attention. But for the sake of simplicity, you can kind of think of them as these three parts: the beliefs, the rituals, and then contribution to the betterment of society. So it's like, this ayah brings us full circle back to the discussion about the qibla. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِصَاصُ فِي الْقَتْلَى. O believers, the law of retaliation is set for you in cases of murder. الْحُرُّ بِالْحُرِّ وَالْعَبْدُ بِالْعَبْدِ وَالْأُنْثَى بِالْأُنْثَى. A free man for a free man, a slave for a slave, and a female for a female. فَمَنْ عُفِيَ له مِنْ أَخِيهِ شَيْءٌ فَاتِّبَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَأَدَاءٌ إِلَيْهِ بِإِحْسَانٍ ذَلِكَ تَخْفِيفٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ فَمَنِ اعْتَدَى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. But if the offender is pardoned by the victim's guardian, then blood money should be decided fairly and payment should be made courteously. This is a concession and a mercy from your Lord, but whoever transgresses after that will suffer a painful punishment. Now, after the verse about righteousness has come down and our moral compass has been somewhat recalibrated, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next couple of verses will give us legislation. So actual laws and rulings. The first of them has to do with the law related to murder. Because imagine at the time of the seerah, people are coming into Islam in droves, especially during the Medinan phase. And when people are coming in, they come in with baggage and history. Some of them, for example, imagine two tribes are coming in, but in the time of Jahiliyyah, they may have been at war with each other, and some may have killed others. Now, what do you do about that kind of situation? So in order to address that, in the process of building a community, Allah gives us this kind of legislation. So essentially what it's saying over here is that, it's a life for a life. So a free man for a free man, a slave for a slave, a female for a female, but there's also the option of pardoning somebody if you choose to go that route. And this is really significant because in so many places, in so many societies, especially in history, you can imagine how the elite would have been more privileged and they would have been able to get away with whatever they wanted to. And even now, like, the wealthy and the more socially high in terms of status, they have much more leeway to get what they want in the legal system, as we're seeing right now actually, with the files that recently came out, right? These types of people don't get accounted, they're not held to accountability. And then when it comes to the poor and the vulnerable and the weak, then they're held extra accountable. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly tells us over here that you have to be fair. If it's a female, then it's a female for a female. If it's about a slave, then it's a slave for a slave, a free man for a free man. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاةٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. There is security of life for you in the law of retaliation, O people of reason, so that you may become mindful of Allah. And so what this is saying is that, the law that Allah gave us related to the retaliation situations, that is going to preserve your society in the long run if you really think about it. If you just see it as one kind of a legislation on top of many other kinds, and you don't really delve into it, then you might just miss the purpose and the significance of it. So Allah reminds us that this is for your own benefit, that you should go about doing things in this way. All right, so we'll wrap up in a few minutes, inshallah. كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين. It is prescribed that when death approaches any of you, if they leave something of value, a will should be made in favor of both parents and immediate family with fairness. This is an obligation on those who are mindful of Allah. Now, why is this verse mentioned over here? Because the previous one talked about the loss of life. So obviously after that, what makes sense is to talk about the concept of a will and leaving inheritance behind. Now this is one of the provisional rules that came down because later on we get more precise rulings in Surah An-Nisa. But for the time being, Allah kind of gives us the principle by which we're supposed to think about our distribution of wealth after death. فمن بدله بعدما سمعه فإنما إثمه على الذين يبدلونه إن الله سميع عليم. But whoever changes the will after hearing it, the blame will only be on those who made the change. Indeed, Allah is all hearing, all knowing. فمن خاف من موص جنفا أو إثما فأصلح بينهم فلا إثم عليه إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Whoever suspects an error or an injustice in the will and brings about a fair settlement among the parties will not be sinful. Surely Allah is all forgiving, all merciful. So in this next verse, the fasting rules will come next. So we'll pause right here for now, and then inshallah, when we're able to meet again, then we'll pick up from verse number 183. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك وأتوب إليه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.